Let's turn now to Pakistan's national elections. The former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is vying for a fourth term. His Pakistan Muslim League party needs an outright majority over former Prime Minister Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party and the Pakistan People's Party led by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Khan is currently in prison, convicted of corruption, and is barred from the election and holding public office. Joining us now is Shuja Nawaz. He's a distinguished fellow and former director of the Atlantic Council's South Asia Center and author of The Battle for Pakistan, a bitter U.S. friendship in the tough neighborhood, and Crossed Swords, Pakistan, its army and wars within. Shuja, thanks so much for joining us. The votes are now being counted in the Pakistan election. There have been reports of sporadic violence across the country, and authorities did cut internet and mobile phone services, they say, to prevent any more violence. But what is your assessment of the conduct of the election so far?
I think overall the authorities deserve credit for having pulled this off, although they did delay the elections and broke with the Constitution in both holding a late general election as well as not holding elections within 90 days when the provincial assemblies in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces were dissolved earlier. But that aside, instead of after 5 years, it's almost 6 years later that we're having elections in Pakistan, and it's a good thing. What is remarkable is the enormous turnout. We don't have the numbers yet, but from all the pictures and the anecdotal evidence collected from people inside Pakistan, very large numbers of people registered to vote. It was 129 million almost registered voters. And if they exceed the traditional 45% that actually come out and vote, it will be a momentous occasion for Pakistan as a whole.
Now, as I said, the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, he's seeking a fourth term as Prime Minister. He returned to Pakistan actually last October after 4 years of self-imposed exile in the United Kingdom. He was convicted of corruption and faced a lifetime ban from politics. So how do you explain this comeback?
Well, the explanation really lies in the relationship between Nawaz Sharif and the army and the relationship between Imran Khan and the army. The relationship between Imran and the former Army Chief General Bajwa took a turn for the worse, and then Khan accused Bajwa of working with the United States to lead to a vote of no confidence that removed him from office. This was his famous conspiracy charge that he threatened to expose the military and the United States. And he never really presented the evidence to the people, but waved a piece of paper for which he was charged for violating Official Secrets Act and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nawaz Sharif had broken with the army before, and that had led to the army supporting Imran Khan's party in 2018 when he was elected. With a fairly large number of votes that many were saying were instigated by the military and the intelligence services in his favor. But once the break occurred between him and the military, the main cause of which was that he wanted the Director General of the Inter-Services Intelligence, a very powerful figure, then Lieutenant General Asim Munir, to be fired for having reported to him that his family was involved in corruption and that his new wife and her children and her friends and her former husband were using the Prime Minister's office for gaining money and access to resources. He resented that and asked Bajwa to remove General Munir. General Munir was removed within 8 months of being made Director General ISI. And it was Imran Khan's bad luck that he was the senior-most three-star in the Pakistan Army when the time came for the government that succeeded Imran Khan, the coalition government headed by Nawaz Sharif's brother, Shahbaz Sharif, that Asim Munir was the senior-most, and so they selected him as the army chief, as the pure form of insurance against Imran Khan ever coming back. And that's really explains the drama that led up to the current elections.
Yeah, you mentioned the former army chief, Javed Bajwa. There was something of a very rare admission by him back in November of 2022. That's when he was the army chief. He admitted that the military had interfered in Pakistani politics. He said they had done so for decades. But in his farewell speech, he said that in the future, the army would steer clear of politics. But from what you're telling me, the military has not lived up to that assurance, has it?
No, and it has repeated this claim at various points in Pakistan's history, saying that it had no role in politics and that it would stay away from politics, that it was dissolving a particular office in the Inter-Services Intelligence Directorate that dealt with domestic political issues, etc., etc. None of that has happened in reality because, in fact, the military's control and penetration of civil life and economic life and governance in Pakistan has increased, particularly in the last decade.
And how do you see the relationship between the military and Nawaz Sharif, should he be elected Prime Minister or should his party get the majority? I mean, would the military have a lot of influence on how the country is governed?
Well, it all depends on what the final results are, and we are still counting the results. The very early trends indicate that it has become essentially a two-party battle between Nawaz Sharif's Pakistan Muslim League and the independents, who are all former PTI, Imran Khan supporters. So in the Punjab and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, as well as in the other provinces, these seem to be the main battles. And from the very early votes that have started coming in and that are being reported by the television stations in Pakistan, which I've been following, the independents appear to have the upper hand, which could well mean a surprise. But as I said, it's early days, early hours, and we still have the whole night of counting. And all kinds of things happen in the last few hours when such a momentous election is at stake. We really can't say if Nawaz Sharif is really in. If he is in, we don't know if he'll have a strong majority, because that will determine his relationship with the military. Ideally, the military would prefer to have a hung parliament so that it can continue to influence economic policy and foreign policy and, of course, security policy.
And just to be clear on Imran Khan's role in all of this, he is not allowed, he is banned from taking part in this election, indeed for running for any kind of public office. So how is he saying that he will contest the election?
Well, he's not contesting the elections, but his people are, and they're running as independents. And under Pakistan's constitution, where people, if they run under a particular party's banner, they cannot switch sides or become part of another coalition if the party forbids them. So all these independents, for the first time in Pakistan's history, if they come into power in very large numbers, are going to be able to form their own coalition of sorts. And if they form a powerful enough coalition, they may well form a new government. So the early trends, as I said, indicate that the social media campaign run by the PTI of Imran Khan succeeded in drawing people out. The video evidence from the major cities throughout the country indicate miles-long lines of people queuing up to vote.
Yeah.
And now there are reports that they're staying at the polling stations to ensure that there is no stuffing of ballots or rigging post the vote count itself.
Pakistan faces some serious challenges, especially on the economic front. There's a soaring cost of living. Inflation is running at about 24%. There have been blackouts, power blackouts. There have been gas cuts as well. So the new government will have its work cut out for it, whether it's in a hung parliament or whether one party gets an outright majority. But do you think they are up to these challenges that the country faces?
I think it's going to be a very rough climb. The inflation rate, actually, the annual rate is now close to 40%. And the inflation in terms of food prices is close to 50%. And the poorest segment in Pakistani society spend half their income on food. So that has really affected them. Moreover, the middle class has shrunk after COVID and the floods and the poor management during Imran Khan's own government, particularly in the last couple of years when there was prolific spending by him as he was preparing for a new elections. The coalition government made a hash of managing the foreign exchange rate and the economy, and in getting to a deal with the IMF, they delayed it needlessly. And so the caretakers really have only now resurrected the IMF deal, got $700 million, and before the current program ends in April, they could get another 1.2 billion. But Anand, the debts of Pakistan are huge. They have to make repayments on previous loans. And so just in the current period, January to June, Pakistan is going to have to pay out something like $9 billion. Its exchange reserves at the moment are barely touching $8 billion. And in the second half of the year, they'll have to shell out another $4 to $6 billion. Remittances, which have been a source of foreign exchange for Pakistan, have dropped from 31 billion to close to 22 billion, and maybe lower than that. So it's going to be a very rough climb. The growth rate is 2% when it should be close to 6 to 7% to stay up with the population. And the Pakistani youth, who are the majority of the population, are the ones that are probably fueling this resurgence of Imran's party. And they're the ones that 60% of the people that came out to vote today.
Those are the domestic economic concerns. What about regional issues? I mean, there are the perennial tensions with India, and more recently there was that exchange of fire between Pakistan and Iran on that border. That appears to have been resolved, but where is that heading?
Well, first on the Iran imbroglio, that has not been resolved. It's been pushed under the carpet by both countries because it was a mistake on the part of the Iranian Pasdaran to try and expand their war against the United States and its allies in the Middle East by hitting what they believe to be proxies of the US operating from Pakistani soil. And the Pakistanis ignored the economic interdependence with Iran, where 3 of the major districts in Balochistan get their electricity from Balochistan. 40% of the fuel being used in Pakistan is coming from Iran. Most of it is being smuggled. So there are all kinds of interrelationships there, economic interdependencies. With India, Imran Khan was the one that closed the border after India changed the status of Kashmir from being a kind of semi-independent entity aligned within the Indian Union and made it like every other state of the Union. Once he closed the border, he deprived Pakistan of the greatest opportunity for its growth, which is trade with India and trade with Central Asia and Afghanistan and India, so that Pakistan could gain from the services that it would provide for Indian traders and Central Asian traders to work with each other, and also to get electricity from Central Asia through Afghanistan into Pakistan and then on to India. So all these things, this is what I would call the opportunity cost of this, the war or the conflict with India. But we don't know which way the Modi government will actually go, particularly after the elections this year. And if they take a hard right turn, I fear that it will provoke an equally hard right turn inside Pakistan. That's not going to be good for both countries.
But do you think after the election, regardless of what the Modi government in India says or does, that there may be some kind of an outreach by Pakistan towards India?
I think it makes eminent sense, and in the past, the military has also agreed to that, so long as the security side is not damaged in the process. Because, as you know, the military is now heavily involved in the economics of the country, not just in managing it, but being part of the economy through its Army Welfare Trust and the Fauji Foundation. And so they are responsible, for instance, for the major transportation of goods and services within Pakistan and through Pakistan to neighboring countries. So there's a great opportunity for Pakistan to make India part of, essentially make it a tributary of the CPEC. There are already reports that Afghanistan may well become a tributary of CPEC, which is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. I think that's another opportunity that is just waiting to be grasped.
Shuja Nawaz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anand.